I continue to wonder what the government's motives are on this. Do they actually want people to do recall, or do they just want to tick off a box saying they've done a campaign promise? I noticed one of the quotes in the press release doesn't say anything about recall legislation. It just says, well, we said we'd do it, so we did it. But having different rules for a partisan body and a non-partisan body doesn't make any sense. If anything, the MLAs should go to an automatic election because they can't be protected by their party, where you might want to have a vote of council. But really, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander here.
Do you think there should be different thresholds for small versus large municipalities, or just a 40%?
Well, you know, before I was mayor, it would be surprising to get a 40% voter turnout in a municipal election. So to ask for 40% of all electors to agree to have someone recalled, that's a pretty high bar. Meanwhile, in a very small community, 40% of electors might actually not be hard to gather, and then there's an automatic election. There's not even a debate about it. So it strikes me as the actual implementation of this will be very difficult.
What are your thoughts on the extended window for collecting signatures for school boards? It's extended to 120 days from 60.
Everyone else is 60.
Yeah.
I look forward to them explaining some of the rationale for these things. That's also really weird.
So chances of any recall elections in a city the size of Calgary?
0.
So
I suppose if someone was really, really, really bad and the whole city was unified on how bad they were, but still, that's hard to get 40% of how many electors do we have in Calgary?
it's over 800,000.
No, not that high. Let me think. Got 200,000 in the last election, 51% of the election, 50% turnout, 400,000. Yeah, about 800,000. Had to do some math in my head there. So 40% of 800,000 is 8 times 4, 320,000 people. Oh man, that's a lot of paper for petitions.
But as you mentioned, like even for a ward recall of a city councillor, that's a high bar.
Yeah, so city council wards have about 100,000 electors. So that's looking for 40,000 electors. I cannot imagine that happening. I mean, look, maybe in the height of the scandal we had in Ward 2, or maybe when Councillor Farkas refused to apologize when the ethics commissioner said he was lying, you might have got 40,000 right then, or 40% right then. But it's hard for me to imagine that someone would be organized enough and disciplined enough to be able to get that number of signatures.
Is it good the mechanism is, even though there are a bunch of concerns have just been raised about it, is it good that the mechanism itself is there now? Or?
I mean, the funny thing is I actually don't have a problem with recall legislation. I think that if conducted properly, it makes sense, but there's very few examples of where it's actually worked well. You know, in California, where there are much lower thresholds, there's a whole industry where you can buy, I don't want to say you can buy signatures, that's not correct, but you can hire people whose whole business it is to go out and get you signatures, which means that wealthy people have access to recall that people who are not wealthy don't have access to. In other places, the numbers are so high, like how long have they had it in British Columbia? And how many people have been recalled? So the numbers are so high that it's effectively impossible to do.
The other thing that just happened is clearly right now is that people that are eligible for vaccines under phase 2B are coming out.
Oh, did they say what it was?
Yeah, the list of health conditions.
Yeah, do you have it?
It's a pretty extensive list.
Am I on it?
I don't know.
Exceptional good looks are sadly not a health condition, though they should be, and we'd all be on it.
On that note, though, have you heard anything back from the province on advocating for frontline city workers?
No, I have not, though the province has actually explicitly said that if more vaccine supply becomes available, their next step would be to look within phase 2 at people in certain professions. So they've made that concession, and it is all based on supply now. Okay, I can't wait to see these phase 2B things. I won't have any real comments on them, so I'll just simply say, you know, I'm really glad those numbers are out. It will help a lot of folks with planning. Have they said when they'll get to phase 2B? They were originally saying early April.
They might have said that. I honestly didn't see it.
Okay.
Like on the website it says like April.
Yeah, it still says that? Okay. Okay, yeah, so I'm pleased to see that those numbers are out, and I encourage Calgarians to check out that list and see if you qualify and start making plans. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.